everyone, and good morning. Welcome to our special webinar this week, or this month, I'm sorry, Mindfulness Made Easy. My name is Amber. Our plan was to go live on Facebook as well, and it looks like we're having a little bit of difficulty with Facebook, so it looks like I think we're just on Zoom today. So again, thank you everyone for attending today. We really appreciate your time. So we are going to be talking about mindfulness today. My name is Amber, again, and I will be your host. Just a few things to look at or think about before we get started. We will be recording this webinar, so we will be sending it out via email after the webinar is over. A couple things: there is a chat box down below. Go ahead and type in any questions you have during the webinar in that chat box. I will address all those questions when we get to the end of the presentation today. Also, because we are on a webinar, it's a little bit hard to be interactive. So occasionally, I might ask you to raise your hand. So there's a little icon down on the bottom of your toolbar where you can raise your hand if that sounds like something that's you haven't had experience with in the past. If for any reason you lose connection to this webinar, just re-click on that link and we will get you back connected. So again, my name is Amber. Thank you so much for being here. Just a little background about myself. I have spent the last 15 years in education, in post-secondary and secondary education, working with individuals to help them with their academic goals and academic success. So creating programs, implementing accommodations for them, and play attention has been an integral part of that role. I've also spent time doing grant writing as well, because as we all know, sometimes to implement those programs, whether it's academically or with nonprofits, we do need to find some of that funding. So that's just a little bit about myself. So we are going to get started, and so without further ado, let's go ahead and start. So, you know, I always want to start with kind of getting us in the mind frame that we want to be at, right? We want to be in the mindfulness mind frame to get started today. So this is a great quote by Louise Hay, and the point of power is always in the present moment. So, you know, that's really impactful when we think about it, and we really start to dive into mindfulness. You know, mindfulness is very popular right now. It's kind of a buzzword, and it really can be implemented in every aspect of our life. And it's really powerful because it puts us in that present moment. We're not dwelling about the past. We're not thinking about the future. It puts us right now in the present moment with the facts that we have now, and that really does give us power. And so we're going to talk more about, you know, the power that it brings us and the benefits that it gives us as we go forward. So we will be following an agenda today. We're going to talk about what is mindfulness, what does it mean, what's the definition, what does it look like, how can it help individuals that are struggling with ADHD, with ODD, with executive function disorder, with anxiety. You know, there are a lot of scientific studies now that have been published that not only does mindfulness help with our general health, but it also helps with symptoms associated with those types of disorders. How does feedback technology fit into that? Why is it important? And then what are some simple ways for you to get started today? Because at the end of the day, we want to give you some tools and tips to get started, because with everything, the more we do it, the more consistent we are, the better we get at it, and the more beneficial, more benefits we receive from that mindfulness. So this, I love this slide. I love this graphic. You know, is your mind full, or are you mindful? Okay, so there's a big difference in whether our mind is full and whether we're being mindful. So when we talk about the definition of mindful, it means to be in the present moment, to be in the now. It also can mean the self-regulation of our attention with attitude of curiosity, openness, and acceptance. Okay, so when I think about that definition and I think about the graphic of being mindful, right? Being mindful, being in the present moment, the one that the dog has where it's looking at exactly, it sees exactly what is happening right now in the moment. And then I think of an individual that is struggling with ADHD or ODD or executive function disorder or even anxiety. And by definition, their mind is full. it's racing. It's almost like a million TV sets are on in their mind at one time. So by design, their mind is the complete opposite of being mindful, right? Being in the present moment. So it's very, very difficult for them to practice being in the state of mindfulness, to have that experience, to be in the now, to quiet those thoughts. And that's why we need to work on practicing and creating those skills for those individuals, because that does help with the symptoms of what they're struggling with, but it also helps with their focus and so many different areas. So we're going to talk about that. You know, when we look at these two different graphics, I know I've been very guilty of having a full mind. I think everyone can relate to that at any given point of their life. You know, what is on my to-do list? What different activities do I need to drive my kids to? What does that look like on a day-to-day basis? And everybody's a little bit different, but we've all experienced that full mind. And so I like to talk about this scenario specifically when we talk about being mindful and then having a full mind. So here's where I'm going to ask you to raise your hand. So if this sounds like anything that you've had experience with, go ahead and raise your hand. Who here has driven either to work or somewhere, has gotten their car and driven from point A to point B and not remembered how they got there? Right? You got in the car and the next thing you remember, you are at your destination. Okay, there are a lot of people raising their hands, so I'm not the only one that has experienced that. And it's because we're thinking of our to-do list. Maybe we're going to have a difficult conversation when we get to our destination. Maybe we're going to the doctor's office. You know, there are so many different things. Maybe we had an argument with somebody earlier. There's so many different things that can be going through our mind, those thoughts that are preventing us from being in the present moment. So now if I think of that same scenario and then I decide to drive to work mindfully, things that I may see is I'm going to notice that maybe there are clouds in the sky. I actually notice the street signs that I'm driving by day in and day out. I maybe see some kids at the park. So I'm experiencing the present moment. As things are happening to me, I'm having that experience. I'm driving mindfully. We can think of the same scenario when we're having a conversation. I'm sure just the same amount of you would raise your hands if I said to you, who's had a conversation with somebody and not remembered that conversation at all? You know, we're all guilty of that as well. We so often are multitasking. I'm seeing hands going up again. So I appreciate that interaction. And I do agree with you. You know, so often we're busy, you know, checking our emails, looking at our phones, thinking about our to-do list, in the middle of work, and someone comes in to have that conversation with us and we miss very vital, important information. So again, to be mindful in those conversations is to stop what you're doing, to engage with that person, listen, actively listen, have, you know, that improved communication with them, and really be, you know, present in that moment to what they're saying to you. One thing I do want to share when we talk a little bit about the driving, recently this week we did put a blog post on our website about teen driving. So, you know, I brought up the driving scenario, and all of us, regardless if we struggle with attention difficulties, have experienced that mindful driving, right? The full mind driving, not the mindfulness driving. And studies show now, there was a recent study that was published that 62% of teens with ADHD have an accident, an automobile accident within the first month of getting their driver's license. That is a huge number, because not only are they experiencing things that all of us experience, but they're experiencing it on such a huge level because their minds are racing all of the time. So if you're interested in reading more about that blog that we posted on our website this week, go ahead and type teen driving blog in the chat box. And when the webinar is over, one of our associates will follow up with that information. But, you know, it was really, you know that the teens struggle with impulse control if they have ADHD and attention, but those numbers are just really impactful and show why it's so important for us to learn that practice of mindfulness, especially when we're dealing with kids and teens as well, because of what they experience day in and day out. So now when we talk about 4 different areas of mindfulness, there are, you know, we're going to break it down into these 4 different areas. And so when I talk about these specifically, I'm talking about mindfulness, Emotional mindfulness. How are we feeling in that present moment? Mental mindfulness. What are we thinking? Our physical mindfulness. How is our body feeling? And then our spiritual mindfulness. How are we connected to the outside world? Are we feeling connected to that outside world, or are we feeling separated? So we'll go ahead and dive into those just a little bit more. So when I talk about emotionally mindful, and Gottman Institute did a fabulous graphic that I'm sharing here with you about emotional mindfulness, because this is really important when we're talking about individuals that are struggling with ADHD and the other areas, just attention difficulties in general. Because one of the major symptoms and impacts that they have in their day-to-day life is that impulse control. And when we're struggling with that impulse control as well as that attention, it's compounded, and we often have a very hard time controlling our emotions, right? That's why you often see individuals that are struggling with attention difficulties have those emotional outbursts. And it can be anger, it can be sadness, it can be frustration. There are so many different emotions that are coming out. And because they're struggling with that impulse control, that ability to, pay attention, the ability to process those emotions, those are coming out, and they're often coming out volatile. So we want to be able to control those emotions mindfully, right? So the 6 steps that Gottman Institute has listed here are really a great 6 simple steps that we can follow when we want to think about our emotions mindfully. How are we feeling in this moment? So first we want to do is we want to accept that we're having that emotion, okay? So maybe it's anger. And so we're going to accept, yes, I'm feeling angry in this moment. But maybe we don't know exactly what that feeling is. So first we want to accept that, yes, we're having some type of feeling right now. And then we're going to identify it. Is it anger? Is it sadness? Is it frustration? What is that emotion? What am I feeling? Let's identify it. And then we want to accept that. So, I'm feeling something. It's anger that I'm feeling, and I'm okay with that. I'm going to accept that because now I'm going to work through it. And I'm going to work through it by realizing that I'm having this emotion. It's okay to have that emotion. This is how I'm feeling in the present moment, but now I'm going to identify why. Okay, so step 5, identify and investigate. Ask yourself why. Why am I feeling angry? Is there something that's triggering me? Is there something that I can't do that I feel like I should be able to do? Have I put myself in a situation where I cannot control the outcome? What does that look like? Why am I having that feeling? And then letting go of it. Okay, so these are really 6 great simple steps to really work through that in the moment of that emotion. Now, I'm sure a question you may have, especially if you're dealing with kids or adolescents, is, well, my child has an emotional breakdown when I take the iPad away, and there is no way that we can go through these steps when they're having the breakdown. And you're right, I agree. Initially, when they are in the full-blown meltdown mode or whatever the case may be, you are not going to be able to go through these steps. That's why we need to teach you these skills and to be able to go through these steps. We need to be able to provide you with cognitive exercises that are going to strengthen their attention. They're going to strengthen their impulse control. So we can address these and we can learn how to go through these steps when that happens, okay? It's not going to happen overnight. And again, it's something that we need to teach you and you need to learn to get through, okay? So now we want to think about being mentally mindful, okay? So what are we thinking right now, okay? What are our thoughts? What is going on in our mind? And why are we thinking that? Is it have something to do with the present moment right now? Or is it something that is in the past or something that's in the future, okay? So if it is a thought that maybe isn't serving us in the now and it's preventing us from being engaged, then we let it go, right? We let it go. It's not, when we talk about mindfulness, it's not emptying the mind. It's accepting the ability to have our thoughts be in the present moment, okay? So it's not that we're going to empty our mind out. We're going to let go of that and we're going to re-engage in what's happening right now. We're going to listen and we're going to observe. So these are some really great questions to ask yourself as you're going through thinking, being mentally mindful. Physically mindful, okay? So now we're focused on how am I feeling? How's my body feeling? So you're going to be in tune to your body. What does it feel like? Listen, feel, observe, okay? Notice your environment. What is going on around you? Is there something that's causing that anxiety? Is there something that you're missing out on because you're not in that present moment, okay? Aligning our posture. Just the way that we hold our body can make a huge difference on our present moment and how we feel in this moment, okay? Noticing our breath. We're going to talk about, and that's going to be one of the simple takeaways you're going to take away today, but just your breathing. Deep breathing can make a huge impact on our physiological self, our being, just by taking a few minutes to do that deep breathing, and we'll talk about that at the end. What's our intention right now? What are we trying to do? Okay, what is our intention now? Not in the future, not yesterday, but right now, and then being able to stay focused. And again, when we talk about individuals that are struggling with ADHD or ODD, that is very, very hard for them to do. So again, we need to be able to teach them the skills so that they can sustain that attention. They can sustain that focus so they can understand what's happening right now and in the now for them. Spiritual mindfulness. Now, this is really just do I feel like I'm connected to the outside world, or do I feel separated? Sometimes there's a misnomer that the spiritual aspect of mindfulness has to be associated with a religion, and it doesn't. It does not have to have that connection. We just want to know, you just need to ask yourself, am I inside? Am I totally inside myself right now? Or do I feel connected in what's going on around me to the outside world? That's really the question that you need to ask yourself. And then, it's often practiced through meditation. And again, meditation doesn't have to be connected to spirituality. It can be done through many different ways. And we're going to talk about a few ways at the end that mindfulness can be, or meditation can be done. But again, it's very simple to do. However, because we're working with individuals that are struggling with attention difficulties, you're not going to be able to ask them to sit down and meditate for 20 minutes. They're not going to be able to do that. We need to take small, manageable steps, starting out with them, building skills so they can be able to sit with their thoughts, for an extended period of time. But again, we're always going to start slow. And so in some meditation practices, you start out with a 3-minute meditation. So we start out for 3 minutes. And once we are able to master that, then we move up and we go on and on. So there are a lot of different ways for us to be able to focus spiritually and just know if we're connected or not. So now we've talked about 4 different areas, how am I feeling, thinking, what does all of that look like? But now what is the function? So if I'm being mindful, how is that affecting, my brain? What is that doing to me? What does that function look like? And, it helps us stay balanced in time and space. So if I'm in the present moment, I'm going to be more balanced now because I'm not, dwelling on the past. I'm not anxious about the future. I'm balanced right now. Again, we can go back to driving. Obviously, I'm going to be driving safer. I'm a safer driver if I am in the present moment. I'm balanced because I'm actively engaged in what I'm doing right now. Helps us know how we are feeling at the moment because we're able to ask ourselves that question. How do I feel right now? Helps us with decision making because we're clearer. We're able to ask those questions. We're able to acknowledge those emotions and those feelings and have that relationship. It promotes well-being. Again, there are numerous scientific benefits now that have been listed of mindfulness, and we're going to talk about that here shortly. But recently, we did do a blog specifically as well on scientific studies that have been done with individuals that struggled with ADHD and how mindfulness helped with those symptoms. So definitely something that is being studied and they're finding great benefits. Those studies were released on Psychology Today, and we did do a blog post on those as well. So if you're interested in reading more about the science and the studies that have been done specifically on mindfulness and linking it to symptoms with ADHD, you can go ahead and type in ADHD blog as well in the chat box, and we'll get that information to you as well. So there are lots of studies being done now on the benefits of mindfulness. It improves neuroplasticity in our brain, and we're going to talk about neuroplasticity and kind of break that down a little bit further here in the presentation. It improves my attention because I'm in the present moment. I'm focused in, so it's going to improve that. It's going to build that skill for me. It's going to reduce my anxiety and my depression because I'm not as anxious. I'm able to quiet that racing heart, or those racing thoughts and that racing heart. So when I talk now about general benefits, when I'm thinking, okay, so specifically, what are some of those general benefits that they're finding when they're conducting these scientific studies? Now, these are in general, these aren't specifically to ADHD, but again, they can help individuals with ADHD. I'm going to be able to lower my stress, okay? I'm going to lower my stress level, and that's just going to help me overall because I'm not going to be so anxious. I'm not going to be dwelling, and I'm going to be in the present moment. It's going to improve that neuroplasticity of our brain. So again, we are going to cover neuroplasticity and talk a little bit about that in depth. It's going to reduce that anxiety for me. It's going to lower my blood pressure. We know if we can lower our blood pressure, that helps us with our heart health. It's going to improve my listening and my communication skills. So back to the scenario of having that conversation. When I'm in the present moment, I am going to be more engaged with that person I'm having a conversation with. I'm going to be able to build a better rapport with them because I'm actively engaged. I'm listening. I'm going to be able to get all of the information I need to make my decision because, again, I'm actively engaged. And then all of this improves our overall health. So now specifically, again, we talked about the fact that we have, recently posted a blog post on the scientific studies of benefits as it correlates specifically to ADHD, ODD, EFD, and anxiety. So a lot of different, they're studying a lot of different attention difficulty areas, and how does mindfulness help with those areas? So when I look at that specifically, there are definitely some ideas now, or some areas. So now, again, remember when I think, or when I speak about mindfulness, being mindful, being present, that's the complete opposite of individuals that are struggling with attention difficulties. So if we can teach them and have them practice to be mindful, they're going to gain a lot of benefits from those. And some of those main benefits that they're going to be able to pull from that practice is they're going to be able to strengthen their ability to self-observe. They're going to be able to ask those questions. How do I feel? What am I thinking right now? Am I engaged? What is my intention? So they're going to have that self-monitoring ability. They're going to be able to train their attention, right? So we want individuals to be able to pay attention to things even if it's not interesting for them. And oftentimes individuals that are struggling with attention difficulties struggle with this, right? They can hyper-focus in on something that is fun and exciting for them, but if they're in somewhere where maybe it's not as engaging for them, then it's harder for them to be able to focus and sustain that attention. So being able to be mindful in the present moment is going to be able to build that ability to focus in and pay attention. We're going to be able to help them develop relationships with experiences that are stressful. Think back to being emotionally mindful, right? So we're going to be able to identify that we're having that emotion. We're going to be able to accept it, identify it, figure out why, investigate it, and then let it go. And that is one of the difficulties when individuals are struggling with attention difficulties, is they are struggling with being able to control those emotions. So we want to be able to give them the ability to process those emotions and then be able to create a relationship with that emotion. And then they're going to be more aware of their emotional state. And when they're more aware of their emotional state, it's going to help them control those impulses, okay? So, 4 different areas that are very, very beneficial of when individuals start practicing mindfulness, the following things are going to be able to take place for them. And so what is going to happen is, so we've talked, I brought up the term neuroplasticity a couple different times, right? So neuroplasticity, because of neuroplasticity, our brains are moldable and they're shapeable. And at any time, given the right training and the right type of feedback, we can create new neural pathways in our brain, meaning we can learn new skills, and we can learn those skills, and we can learn those skills permanently. There can be permanency that happens there with that neuroplasticity. And that's what we want to do with mindfulness. We want to create new neural pathways and create that new skill of learning how to be mindful. Now, recently, last month actually, we did a webinar on neuroplasticity that really got into the science behind neuroplasticity and why it's so important and really how we create those new neural pathways. We're not going to get into that today, but if that's something you're interested in learning more about, if you type in neuroplasticity in the chat box, we'll be able to get you that information as well. But that's what we do here at Play Attention. So that is why feedback technology is important in the mindfulness process. So that's what we talked about, So in our agenda, we talked about what mindfulness is. We talked about how it benefits individuals that are struggling with attention difficulties. Now we're going to talk about how integral feedback technology is to that practice of mindfulness. So think about feedback as when I'm learning something new, okay? So feedback is integral to the learning process. So think about when you yourself were learning your colors, or if when you're teaching your kiddos colors, okay? So if I see something that's blue and I call it blue, I'm going to get positive feedback. So someone is going to tell me, right, that's correct, that is blue. But if I see something that's blue, but I call it green, they're going to give me feedback on that as well. And they're going to tell me, no, that's not blue, it's green. So that is integral when we learn, okay? So when we learn, whether we're learning as a child or an adult, we are learning through that immediate and constant feedback. That's what helps us. Even if I'm in the workplace and I'm doing a new report, and my supervisor comes back to me and says, okay, this part of the report looks really well or really good, but these areas we need to focus a little bit better on, or these are some tools that you can use to fix that area of your report. So I'm getting immediate and constant feedback on how to complete a task. So we want to do the same thing with our attention. But when you think about attention, it's a very abstract idea, right? We can't see it, we can't touch it. So to give feedback on attention, it's very difficult to do. Same thing with being mindful. It's hard to say, yes, I'm practicing mindfulness effectively because I can't see it. Part of it is a feeling, but I'm not getting that constant and immediate feedback. So to create those neural pathways and to create them permanently by adding feedback technology, that's how we can get from point A to point B. And that's what we do here at Play Attention. We provide feedback technology in addition to proven cognitive exercises and a behavioral shaping program that not only increases our attention, controls that impulse, builds that emotional regulation, and builds that self-regulation so that we're able to focus, we're able to become mindful, and we're able to be in that present moment, okay? So the body wave armband is what we use to get that feedback. And what it does is it actually picks up brain activity indicative to attention. So our brain gives off an attention signature when we're in our optimal level of attention. And that body wave armband is able to pick up that signal and feed it via Bluetooth wireless to the cognitive exercises that we have in our program. And individuals are going to actually be able to make their attention concrete and controllable now, meaning they're going to actually be able to move characters within the exercises with just their attention alone. And this is what's going to give them immediate and constant feedback. So if I'm practicing attention and I'm learning attention, that's going to help me be able to practice mindfulness as well, because I have to be in the present moment to be able to get the character to do what I want in the exercise, in the cognitive exercise, because I have to be fully focused and paying attention. So all of our exercises have a component of mindfulness associated with them. So, definitely if you're interested in learning more about Play Attention, if you're new to us, we are going to be doing a webinar next Tuesday at 1 o'clock Eastern time. Again, all of our webinars are recorded, so if you can't attend live, that's not a problem. We do send those out. So if you're interested in learning more about Play Attention and you would like to attend that webinar, if you just type in webinar down below, we will get you registered for that. But now I'm going to focus on one of our exercises specifically that we have within Play Attention that focuses focuses on 100% on mindfulness. And what that is lotus. So it's our exercise lotus, and it's our visual representation of being in the now. Okay, so it allows us to see ourselves being mindful, and it allows us to practice. So again, getting to that level of permanency, we need to practice, just like everything else. When I'm learning to tie my shoe, I have to practice, right? When I'm learning a new song, if I'm learning an instrument, if I'm learning a routine, when I want to create permanency with that and create new neural pathways, I have to be able to practice. And my effective practice is going to be when I get immediate and constant feedback. And again, that's what play attention allows you to do. It allows you to be in an environment where you can not only practice the skill of attention, the skill of mindfulness, the skill of impulse control, but it allows you to be challenged as well, because it's going to continue to challenge you as you go forward. Because I need to be challenged as well as I'm practicing, because if I practice the same thing over and over again, I'm going to learn it, but I might not learn it at a specific level, and maybe I eventually forget it. But if I'm constantly challenged and I'm constantly practicing, that's where that neuroplasticity comes into place. Okay, so again, Lotus is going to allow us to practice mindfulness. It's going to allow us to learn how to keep our mind on the present moment. It's going to allow us to be present, be calm, and be in the moment. And it is such a valuable tool exercise to be able to help us build that skill of mindfulness. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and share a video with you on what Lotus looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and play that for you.
Play Attention's Lotus provides you with mindfulness training. While wearing the Body Wave armband, you can actually see yourself being in the now. Your avatar sits in a Zen room, poised and overlooking a closed lotus flower. You will open the lotus petal by petal by achieving a mindful state. If your mind begins to leave the present moment and you lose that state, the lotus petals begin to close. You receive real-time feedback that teaches you how to consistently stay in your mindful state. Be mindful. Be present. Be calm. Be in the moment.
Okay, so I hope you were able to see and hear that video, just a little bit of a visual graphic of what Lotus does and what it helps us learn with mindfulness. So again, you know, when we talk about all of these pieces together, there are still simple ways that we can get started with mindfulness now. And so, you know, we talked about what it was, how it can help individuals with attention difficulties, you know, the feedback aspect of it. But here are some very simple ways to get started that you can implement day in and day out. Now, again, we did do an ebook recently on mindfulness that goes more into some of these areas in depth. So if you'd like, if you haven't received that ebook, that free ebook that we have on mindfulness, and you are interested in it, if you type in ebook, mindfulness ebook, we will get that out to you as well. It's got a lot of great tools in it as well for you. But when I talk about simple ways that I can incorporate mindfulness in my everyday breathing, so I mentioned this earlier, so 4-count breathing. So if you're not familiar with 4-count breathing, all it is I breathe in for 4 counts, I hold it for 4 counts, and then I release it for 4 counts, okay? So very, very simple to do. You can do it anywhere. It doesn't require any kind of extra things to do. Just being able to sit there with your breath is very, very valuable, and it's a way to be mindful and in the now. So if you can sit and do this 3 or 4 times, that's gonna make a huge difference. And again, studies show that that can lower your blood pressure and your anxiety in the moment. So again, 4-count breathing. Mindfulness eating. So this may be a term you are familiar with. It may not be a term you're not familiar with. Now, again, I could ask you to raise your hand of who here has experienced the fact where they will eat on the go. You know, who's eaten in their car, who's eaten while they were rushing to get out the door to take their kids to practice, you know, who eats at their desk at lunchtime. I'm sure with those different scenarios, I could have every single one of you raise your hand, and a lot of you are raising your hand right now. It's continuing to go, you know, as I talk. So when I talk about mindfulness eating, that's the exact opposite of those scenarios that I just spoke about, right? So mindfulness eating means, number one, I'm going to remove all the distractions around me. I'm going to turn the TV off. I'm not going to drive. I'm not going to look at my phone. I'm not going to scroll through Facebook. I am going to focus 100% on what I'm eating and what I'm doing right in this moment. And so with things, you know, that you can, the way you can mindfully eat, some of the tools is, number one, remove those distractions, and number two, focus. What does it smell like? What does it look like? What does that first bite taste like? What does the chewing sensation feel like? Okay, swallowing it. You know, what does it feel? What does it do to my body? Okay, so many different questions and things that really I can allow myself to mindfully eat and to be in the present moment. And we know that this helps a lot too, because oftentimes when we are mindlessly eating, we eat more, we consume more calories, we make more poor food choices, we make poorer food choices when we're doing that mindless eating instead of mindful eating. Mindfulness walking. So this is not where I'm going out to get exercise. This is going out and observing my environment, okay? So I'm going to challenge you to do a mindfulness walk. And the challenge is to go out and walk on a route that you've been on, either you drove by numerous times or you've walked numerous times, and pick out something, you know, pick out something that you're going to look for. So an example would be, okay, I'm going to take this path that I've taken a million times, and I'm going to look for things that are yellow. Okay, and when I'm on that walk, I can guarantee you're going to see things on that walk that have always been there that you've never observed, because you haven't been in the present moment when you're walking. You may be thinking about things you need to do when you still get home. You may be thinking about your day. You're not in that present moment. So my mindful walk is not necessarily for exercise. Obviously, you're going to get exercise benefit from it, but it's to be slow. It's to think about what, you know, to be in the present moment, to observe what you're seeing around you, to engage. So that is my challenge to you, to try to go on a mindful walk and observe something that you haven't observed before. A bedtime routine. So, you know, a lot of us are guilty of watching TV in the bedroom, sleeping with our cell phones right beside us, checking our email late at night, checking our email first thing in the morning, checking Facebook. And, you know, studies have shown too that we should stop all technology at least 30 minutes prior to bed. And regardless of if you do that or not, by having a bedtime routine like scanning your body can be beneficial. Even if you don't remove the technology, just taking a few moments before you go to sleep to scan your body, to do a complete scan. You know, what do my eyes feel like? What does my nose feel like? What does my neck feel like? Am I feeling any tension? Am I feeling any pain? And to let that go, right? To get yourself with that intention of being relaxed and being ready to go to sleep for the night. Environmental awareness. This can go back to the walk, right? Just our environmental awareness of being aware, observing what is around us. You know, so often we drive someplace, again, and it's so routine. You know, I've driven on a path to work for a year, and some of the street signs, I don't know what they are because I'm not observing my environment. So observing your environment, being aware of what is going on around you. Planning. You know, we're so, you know, driven in our society today. We have so many, you know, to-do lists, so many activities to get to, and sometimes it can be chaotic, and it can cause us to not be mindful in the moment. So mindfulness planning just means taking 5 minutes in the morning. You know, when you wake up, instead of getting right on your cell phone, instead of checking your emails right away, take 5 minutes. quietly and plan what your day looks like. Now, of course, there are going to be things that are going to pop up, right, that we're not planning for, but to get an outline and a plan of our day can make a huge difference as we go through our day mindfully. Our movement. So, you know, just observing how we're moving, observing how we're feeling, being intentional with those movements. Part of that could be yoga. You know, doing yoga is a huge piece of really being present and being in the moment of your mindfulness and being connected to what you're feeling right now. And then finally, meditation. You know, I brought that up again. It doesn't have to be a spiritual piece when we talk about the meditation. There are so many different ways. If you Google meditation, you're going to get a million hits at least. And some of the different types of meditation, again, are breathing. There can be breathing meditation, just being aware of that breath for 3 minutes, for 5 minutes, okay? There are mantras. So I am calm. I am calm. You know, to say that mantra over and to focus on that, focusing on that really helps quiet the mind of other types of you know, things that can get into our thoughts while we're trying to be mindful. There are guided meditations, there are unguided meditations. There's so many different ways, but again, when we're working with individuals that are struggling with attention, we always want to start slow. So maybe we start them with twice a day, you ask them to do the 4-count breathing 3 times, right? We ask them to try to meditate for 3 minutes. Again, when we incorporate the feedback technology, we're going to be more successful because we're going to be able to give them that immediate constant feedback of whether they're in that mindful state. However, there are things that we can start, but with everything, we always want to start them at their level and increase them from there. They're not going to be able to sit down and do a 20-minute meditation. It's just going to be too difficult for them. Okay, so those are just some great ways to get started. It's very simple to do. You don't need any tools to get started with them. They're things that you can incorporate in very different aspects of your day. So lastly now, again, thank you for being here. I appreciate you all joining and hanging out with us and learning more about mindfulness. So now I'm going to go through a few questions. So keep your questions coming. If you haven't asked it and something pops up and you want to ask it, please do. I'm going to go ahead and scroll through and see what we have here for questions. Let's see here. Okay, I do have a question. For the first question here is from Cindy. She works with professionals interested in the research and would like to learn more about it. Again, so Cindy, if that's something you're interested, we can do. Number one, we do have our research. We have had clinical studies done by Tufts University Medical School. They did a clinical studies on play attention, and we have those studies available. So if anybody would like to learn more about the Tufts University studies, if you type Tufts down below, we will send you that research so you can learn more. But Cindy, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you have about play attention, what that looks like training wise, before you would like to, go forward with anything with your with professionals. And if there are professionals out there that you would like to work with as well, just let's put down their consultation. We'll reach out to you and we'll get everybody to the table that needs to learn about play attention before you make those decisions. Let's see here. Cindy also asked, will insurance or Medicaid help clients purchase play attention? That's a great question. So play attention is an educational device. So traditionally we see insurance does not cover that. However, we do have some information about our products and things that we can share with you to share with insurance companies. However, even without traditional insurance not covering our products, a lot of our clients have had success using their flexible spending accounts as well as their health savings accounts to purchase the system. So definitely there are some avenues there to help individuals use health benefits to purchase the system. Okay, another question from Joe. How often do individuals need to do the training? So that's a great question as well. So, when we talk about play attention, we recommend that you do at least 1 hour of training a week, but we do recommend that training is broken up. So a lot of our clients will do 4 15-minute sessions. Some will do 3 20-minute sessions, 2 30-minute sessions. There's a lot of flexibility in that as long as you're getting an hour in a week. And then through our clinical studies that we've seen, after about 40 hours of training, that's when we have that level of permanency. Now that's on average. So, some individuals are a little bit less, some individuals are a little bit more, but when we talk about that hour of training and we talk about 40 hours, it's about 8 months to go all the way through the program. But again, if you have an individual or a client or your child that needs more than that 40 hours, they're going to have access to that. We're going to make sure that they have reached that level of permanency before they're done with their training. So good question, Joe. Kathy mentioned she purchased the Body Wave armband in 2016, and is it compatible with Mindfulness Lotus app? Yes, it is. So Lotus is a new exercise, a cognitive exercise that we released in the fall. So it is available to purchase. If you are a current client and you have Play Attention, you can add that game in and use it with your program. So yes, definitely. So Kathy, if you're interested in learning more about that, how to add that into your program, just go ahead and let me know in the chat box and we'll get a hold of you afterwards. Also, and I have Cindy, another great question. Have you worked with athletes seeking to enhance performance? Yes, we have. So, Play Attention is used for individuals with attention difficulties, but we also work with individuals that are looking for peak performance. And that just means they're an athlete or they're in a profession where they need to be in that peak level of performance with their attention, okay? So we've worked with the Olympic bobsled team, we've worked with NASCAR, we've worked with NASA, and we've also worked with a nuclear power plant in Toronto that used this to help their workers be in that optimal level of attention. So that's, really a great question, Cindy, because not only is Play Attention there to help you improve build those skills of attention and impulse control and focus, but then you can also go to a level of peak performance. So if you do have an individual that goes all the way through the program, they can still then train in peak performance after they've created that permanency of those skills. So definitely lots of flexibility with that to really help you get, those skills, but then just be at that peak level as well. So great questions from everybody. Please keep them coming. Okay, so Laura Lee asked, where's Play Attention available? She is a OT from South Africa and just wondering where and how to get it. So that is a great question. So Play Attention can be used as a home. You can purchase it as a home client and use it right in your home, but we do have a professional option as well. And so we do have OTs, counselors, doctors, schools, all use Play Attention with different types of clients. So I will reach out to you, Laura Lee, afterwards. We do have a group in South Africa that would be willing to help you. We are an international company. We help individuals all over the world. So we have some point contacts with individuals in different countries, but we do ship everywhere in the world as well. So definitely, if you're interested, and Play Attention is in a lot of different languages. So, it gives you a lot of flexibility to work with a great group of individuals. So yeah, Laura Lee, I will get you that information on how to contact the group in South Africa for that. Great question. I'm trying to make sure. Oh, I missed one. So Heather asked, how do I load this onto my computer? So that is a great question, Heather. So Play Attention is, when you purchase Play Attention, you receive the Body Wave armband, which is the technology that you'll need to use in conjunction with the exercises, the cognitive exercises you'll receive. So the cognitive exercises are actually software that you'll download directly onto your computer. So you'll need a desktop or a laptop to run the program. It can be done on a PC or a Mac. And so when you purchase the system, you'll receive the Body Wave armband, and then you'll receive the licensed software to be able to do the cognitive exercises. So that's what it'll look like if you purchase Play Attention. And then you'll have the games, they're the cognitive exercises that will be available for you to customize your program. Let's see, I have another one pop up. Cindy, does it measure heart rate? No, we are only measuring brain activity. Okay, so those sensors are picking up electrodermal potential, and they're actually picking up brain activity. So we do not have any heart rate information that it picks up. Okay. Any other questions here? These are really great questions. Remember, if you're interested in talking with, talking further with an associate, you can always type your phone number in down below as well, and we will make sure that an associate gets back to you. If you're ready to do that consultation, type consultation in, we'd be happy. And remember, we do have that special discount if you mention mindfulness. We have that webinar next week that we have available, and so definitely if you're interested in learning about it that way, our webinars are very beneficial and have a lot of great information in them as well. And then if you're interested in any of the blogs that we mentioned, the driving blog, the studies blog, or if you're interested in our research, Tufts, or if you're interested in that mindfulness ebook, any of those things, if you're interested in all of it, just type all and we will make sure that you get all of that information. Okay, so I do see some people entering their phone numbers, so that is great. Thank you so much for, we're excited to talk with you more about really helping you get a really customized program for you. Again, thank you so much, all of you, for attending today. I really do appreciate it. I know Fridays, especially in the summer, can be a little hairy with our schedule. So thank you so much. We appreciate it, and we look forward to working with all of you. Have a great day and a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.